Hello and thank you for joining us on the Monday edition of Journalist Hangout. I'm Ayodele Ozubaku. Today on the program, Tribunal nullifies election of Douye Diri as Governor of Bayelsa State over exclusion of ANDP from the poll. Still to come, ahead of Edo and Ondo Governorship election, Inspector General of Police orders arrest, prosecution of individuals, groups carrying illegal arms. UNILAG Senate takes fight over removal of Vice Chancellor to the Presidency as Governing Council insists his sack stands. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade-Otitoju, while Mojeed, Jamiu and Olabisi Deji-Folutile will be joining us via Skype. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for staying with us. There appears to be no end in sight yet to the Bayelsa State governorship election tussle. The State Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal sitting in Abuja has nullified the election of Douye Diri as the governor of the South State. This is sequel to a petition filed by the Advanced Nigerian Democratic Party, ANDP, over unlawful exclusion from the 16th November 2019 poll. In a majority judgment delivered by Justice Yunusa Musa, the tribunal ruled that INEC was wrong to have excluded the party from the election and ordered a fresh poll within 90 days. The party chairman is delighted with this judgment.
And in my years of practice, this is a well-considered judgment, a judgment that has merit, a judgment that you cannot unturn such judgment. Because my candidate was excluded, they were all excluded from participating. And we approached the court to interpret if actually we have the right of a petition.
This doesn't have anything to do with who got what and the point they actually came out within the poll. What's ANDP, what they're saying that, look, their exclusion from the poll, ab initio, whatever might have been their chances of winning that particular election, that exclusion is unlawful.
Yeah, this sort of thing could have happened in Kogi State, if you remember, when the INEC on its own just decided to disqualify the candidate of the SDP.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, the governorship candidate of the SDP was deemed to have had a running mate that was underage. She then decided to make the substitution. That substitution happened within the stipulated time frame. But INEC still went ahead and said that, okay, SDP would not be able to field candidates for that election. So she decided to go to court. And the court lambasted INEC, saying that INEC had no power to disqualify a candidate. It's the job of the courts. And in this case, the SDP governorship candidate picked a substitute within the time stipulated. So why did you go ahead to disqualify the party? So INEC has to be very careful, because when it makes mistakes, I'm not saying that in this case INEC made a mistake. When it makes a mistake, it sets back the rest of us. It means that the election will then have to be conducted fresh. And you know the implications of that. It will cost INEC money to organize a fresh election. A statewide election is expensive to conduct. It costs a lot of money. You mobilize your staff and all that, put everybody on ground, even for the parties. It costs money. You have to pay agents and all that, feed them. So, but INEC has to be very careful to ensure that no one is unlawfully excluded from taking part in an election. You have to do due diligence, put the notice on the board at INEC so that every party taking part in the election can go and check to see if its logo is there, if the name of his candidates are published on the INEC bulletin board, so that if those names are not there or the logos are not there, they can now complain officially within the time that INEC rules permit. INEC can quickly rectify such a mistake. But if INEC, by any omission, fails to include a candidate that the law permits to take part in an election, that candidate would exercise his fundamental human rights, and at the end of the day, INEC will be forced to conduct a fresh election. That is what has happened in this case. They went to court to argue that they were unlawfully excluded, and the tribunal granted their prayers.
Mojeed, we know this is not the last lap. We still have the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. Let's say INEC, the Supreme Court, if in any way, if they yield to this ruling, if they go with this tribunal ruling, what would now be the situation? Is it election in the next 90 days? And who will not participate from that election?
Yes, but it will still get to the Supreme Court before we can now start thinking of who and who will participate or not. But as it were, it's a serious mistake from the side of INEC, as usual. And also, I blame INEC because this same party, the ANDP, was registered just November 16, 2019. So when as INEC, when you continue to register all these mushroom parties, then it gives you this kind of problems. Now, it's the mushroom party, almost unknown, but then it's giving you serious problems. Even INEC a serious setback. This same party was registered in February this year. So, although it initiated this case before it was registered, it's one of the parties that were registered for failing to win any election at the presidential, governorship, federal House of Senate reps, or even a state house of assembly, or even a councillorship election from the presidency down to the list. So you see this kind of party giving INEC this sort of setback. But then, if they pursued the law up to the Supreme Court, they might end up winning, except INEC wants to settle out of court. And, when it gets to that level, you see a lot of interest coming in. But I doubt if the APC will be included in the ballot if elections were to be reordered in Bayelsa, if push comes to shove. They call that 24 hours before David Leon of the APC, who actually won the election, was so the Supreme Court removed him based on the fact that qualified. So I doubt if the APC or any other party that has been excluded, either by the court or by statute, would allow contest if the case ends up at the Supreme Court and it's ruled in favor of the ANDP candidate. That we can have is another.
Okay.
Yeah.
BC, now looking at this scenario, looking at the outcome of this now, and will this allow even the governors to concentrate? Because if a party like ANDP that was registered in 2018 goes to court, and this could unsettle the governor and affect governance, is it not possible for us to have like a time frame whereby all this litigation can come in and be, treated before the inauguration of the governor?
Yeah, this is even very unfortunate. Remember that on Saturday, there was a ruling of the governor, and nobody actually expected that this was going to happen. But then, like everyone has rightly said, the party just acted on the loophole created by INEC. And if we know that it has the fundamental human rights to challenge whatever could not favor it, then we cannot blame the party. But then, as for the concentration of governors, I think it has a lot to do with how these people are going to be doing their work. Because right now, this governor is going to be battling with this case, even up to Supreme Court. And it's a battle for survival for him. And you can imagine that several other aspects of governance are going to be set aside for him to win in this battle. So I think basically INEC should be more alive to its responsibilities. We don't have to be in this kind of quagmire if INEC had done its work effectively and efficiently. So I think going forward, INEC should just be more circumspect. It should be more efficient, and we should avoid things that can bring on to this kind of level. As per the time frame, I think there is already a time frame within the Constitution, and I think this ruling is still coming within that time frame. To the best of my to the best of my understanding.
Babajide, now when we look at the proliferation of political parties, INEC actually went to court. The INEC won at the first round. So the political parties, they've gone to the Court of Appeal. The last one from the Court of Appeal, the parties had their ways. Now we are talking about, we went to 2019 election with 93 political parties. And INEC is still telling us that they have application from over 100 political associations that are seeking to become political parties. And this is my first time of hearing this ANDP, DP. And they registered these parties sometimes in 2018.
Yes.
And you can see, if you check the results.
They always register just for the sake of the election.
Yes. And if you look at the statistic, if eventually these people participated in that election, nobody can tell me that.
I don't think they can score to 50 votes from the local things.
That's it's almost ridiculous. So talking about these political parties, I think something should be done. INEC should have a kind of power to say, no, you can't just all come.
No, I believe that the Electoral Act, and indeed the Constitution, because the Constitution is superior to the Electoral Act, the Constitution has to be amended in a way that stipulates the criteria for registration of political parties, in a manner that sets out the conditions that must be met before you can be qualified to register as a political party, and the conditions that will be present that would then trigger your deregistration as a political party. A lot of these parties are just made up of jokers in the real sense. They have nothing to offer. When elections come, they negotiate with politicians who lose primaries. They easily cross to them. They make themselves available, you know. So, because in this case, this is not a party that can win an election. It's already even been deregistered. And INEC has a big problem with a lot of them, because you are INEC, in this case, Alanda, INEC even wrote to them. Some of them, INEC will be asking, okay, who is your chairman? In the state, who is the state chairman? Where is your party secretariat located? They won't provide us the information. Whereas, in spite of it happened in Cross River, INEC was forced, even after INEC had printed ballot materials. These guys left only their phone number. INEC wanted to discover where their party secretariat was. The information, both in Abuja and it was not available, but the phone number was there. INEC, to be on the safe side, decided to go and print fresh ballots, because they knew that these guys were just waiting for them.
Booby trap.
Yes, So they had to go and print fresh ballots. At the end of the day, the saving grace was the fresh ballots that they printed. Otherwise, a fresh election would have been ordered.
I have Nelson from Yola. That's Yola in Adamawa. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Where are you calling from in Yola? Jimeta or where?
Jimeta, yes. Jimeta.
Okay. Go ahead, Nelson.
Good evening, Babajide.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for your insights, especially in matters like this.
Thank you.
What is happening is very unfortunate. And seriously, I am worried because when you consider the bigger picture, truth is that there is a massive institutional failure as regards to issues like this. First, like Babajide pointed out rightly, if you remember the Kogi issue and how the case ended up, and now we have another issue, it's obvious that even the legal system in the country seems to be run in a way that does not suggest uniformity, especially when the cases are similar in nature.
Yes.
Secondly, look at now INEC. This is not coming from parties themselves. It's coming from INEC. So how will now the governor suffer for INEC or take responsibility for INEC's?
Yeah.
All right. Nelson, thank you for your contribution. Then before we leave this, Babajide, some people will ask, I asked Mojeed, and Mojeed did not answer my question the way I wanted it. I was saying that if they were to say this election, this is the final verdict, and they should hold election in the next 90 days, what will be the fate of people like David Lyon?
I think that Mojeed answered it in a way, because he said he does not think that the APC will be on the ballot. I'm not convinced too that the APC will be on this ballot if a fresh election were to be held. One of the reasons I say that is the time ceiling for substitution of candidates had ended. And it's one of the reasons, I said when many people thought that APC would be allowed to replace Akpabio, I kept saying that I knew that APC would not be allowed to replace Akpabio. There is a ceiling for party primaries, for time ceiling for party primaries, for substitution of candidates and all that. Once that time ceiling has ended, you cannot substitute candidates. And when you look at INEC versus Labour Party, the Supreme Court even affirmed that by using the word as it were, meaning those who took part in that election. You understand? It's not setting the whole thing back. It also used the phrase, an analogy talking about a relay. When they are doing inter-house relays in schools, you have heats, you have this, then you get to the final. So the Supreme Court used that analogy that you don't then go back to start from first round, second round, quarterfinal, semi-final. You get the point that I'm trying to make. So it is those who took part in that election. And the status of the candidacy of the APC had already been decided by the apex court in the land. That's in respect of that last election. So I have extreme doubts that even on this, that the APC candidates will benefit. No, I have extreme doubt. That is not saying that it had not happened before, but I'm looking at cases that had happened after 1999, when it happened in the case of the governor of Bauchi. Yes, other cases had happened, since then, where this was established. So yeah, I align with Mojeed that even if that election were to take place, the APC may not be allowed to benefit. But we'll wait for the registrar of the court or the tribunal to come up with the consequential order that the court gave.
I'll wait for the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court.
Yes, of course it will get. INEC is not convinced that this is not a matter that I cannot win. In fact, it's arguing that he wrote to them to provide evidence that their candidate was valid, but that it was ignored. So there is still.
Moving on now. The Edo and Ondo State governorship election are upon us, but we are on the edge of possible outbreak of violence. To prevent this, the Inspector General of Police, Mohamed Adamu, has ordered the arrest of individuals or groups in possession of illegal firearms. He directed commissioners of police in the 36 states and the FCT to be on top of this and bring perpetrators to book. This is the regular rhetorics. Mojeed. Now we have APC versus PDP in Edo State. The stakes are so high, and even in Ondo State. But we know that in any election, politicians do go with they go out with miscreants with guns, apart from the state actors.
They actually thugs, the politicians when elections like this come. And after the elections, the thugs, the political thugs are let loose with those weapons that they have acquired. But I think I like what the IGP said, but he said all the police commissioners in all the 36 states and the FCT should identify, isolate, arrest, and prosecute those thugs, even charge them to us, not only in Edo and Ondo State, because, thugs have a way of moving to the states where elections will be holding. So they will be on an outward journey towards Edo and Ondo now. In some instances, Ondo and Edo also share borders. That of Edo is coming up first on September 19th. But the police authorities and other security agents should go beyond the police. I just announced this is what we hear at the eve of elections like this. But I think they should go further by actually trying to distill the tension that is building up, especially in Edo. We don't want Edo to become a theater of war because the tensions are very high. I don't see any serious problem coming from Ondo, especially with what has happened in the past few days. Ondo is also going to be as tough as Edo. Edo is the place to watch, especially given the fact that we have the drama that happened in the APC and also in the PDP, where we are seeing a reverse of what happened in 2016, where the candidate of the APC is now the candidate of the PDP, and the candidate of the PDP is now the candidate of the APC.
Olabisi, hello, Bisi, are you there? Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. And our election is not something that is not a thing of joy. It's not, in other climes, anytime they want to have elections, like celebration and ideas, and a lot of people will be happy that they will want to go to the ballots. But as Edo State election is coming, I told somebody that I'm not even happy. I'm not even happy that I'm going to be part of that exercise because of what I saw in Kogi State.
You see, the way we have taken elections in this country is cause for a serious re-evaluation. We have taken elections as a do or die affair. And, it's something that we need to actually deal with. And I think we should look at the problem from the foundation. Why is it that politicians are taking elections as do or die? Is it because they don't trust the system, that they are going to get justice in case there are issues of illegalities or rigging? Or is it because, what I'm trying to say is that, do we really have confidence in our rule of law as a nation? Because we need to address the fundamental problems that make violence a recurring decimal anytime we are having elections. It happens, and it's almost all the time that, the police always come up with the fact that there are illegal harms that need to be,
Mopped up.
that people should, and we cannot, that we should address it. We cannot continue to look at issue of illegal arms all the time that we want to do elections. We have to address the problem responsible for people preferring to look for, to seek solution, to look for, how to solve their own, how to get justice on their own. And I also do not think that the police should announce to the public that it is going to, take illegal arms away from the system or the rest of it. I think that the police should do its own responsibility of taking, arresting, even without telling Nigerians what it is planning to do, because
Okay.
it is its responsibility to provide security for the country.
Okay. We'll take this break. When we come back, we'll talk more. It's still Journalist Hangouts. We'll be right back after this time out. Please don't go away. Welcome back. This is Journalist Hangouts, and we are looking at the proliferation of arms in the system. Babajide, when you look at anytime we getting ready for election in Nigeria, it's not something that is always, especially when you talk about the southern part of the country. You want to hold the election in a state like River State. You can imagine the number, the amount of how the exercise will be so militarized that even military guys are always kidnapped during the election.
Even soldiers too sometimes join in rigging elections. You and I know now, although they will not admit it. But there are videos of soldiers joining in rigging elections in our country. Is that what they are paid to do? Is it right? Does it happen elsewhere? So it's unfortunate that we've turned election to warfare in our country. And that is why, because people also know that they can't get justice, there's no guarantee that they will get justice at the tribunals.
So on election day,
deploy what is deployable, break people's heads, split people's cause open. At the end of the day, if you
scare
win,
voters away.
if you win,
go to your enemy's strongholds, create violence there.
grab ballot materials, beat up people. When you beat up people where your enemy is strong, it is still the enemy that loses because they will cancel election there. You have deliberately caused
weaken the
violence
number of votes
there.
that will
Yes, so that it does not come up with a quantum of votes. You have deliberately precipitated violence. And at the end of the day, it's still the one who gets punished by INEC. They will cancel the election. It's characterized by violence. Nobody will talk about who took violence to the polling center. So this is the thing. Election has become a matter of do or die in our country, So you beat up people. Once you are able to, the end justifies the means. That's the way our politicians see it. Once you are able to win by any means on election day,
your lawyers will take care of the rest.
Yes, lawyers will take care of the rest.
Just go and look for senior advocate of Nigeria.
Get them, at the end of the day, you will, even when you provide evidence, cast iron evidence,
you say
the judiciary will still
not
accuse you of not proving beyond reasonable doubt. So who defines beyond reasonable doubt? An election that everyone can see was characterized by violence and vote rigging, yet the victim does not get justice.
To prove you want 20,000 votes across the country,
yes,
polling unit across the country, and it was mad with you.
Because according to the tribunal, elements of his complaint were criminal in nature, and any complaint that is criminal in nature, you must prove beyond reasonable. You must provide empirical evidence. Like when he said the soldiers were used to rig elections, that's criminal. you must prove. How many polling units can you actually go? So it becomes difficult.
Extremely.
To prove your case. That's why it's on rare occasions that you find that, oh, somebody stole the people's mandate, and then they take it from him and give someone. It's difficult these days to achieve that. It's extremely difficult. And that's why you have what is happening. You see, we can only wish as journalists that the election in Edo and Ondo will be peaceful. But for the gladiators who know what is at stake, who know that, look, if they break people's heads at the end of the day, it is for the survival of the fittest. They are not going to listen to us. Even if we can paint it tomorrow. We pleaded with them that they should not beat people up in Kogi. Did they listen? We saw what happened. So it has become part of our election, and it's something to be ashamed of.
I think I have this caller. Thank you for joining us. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Yes, thank you
Hello.
for joining us.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, greeting and the other analysts on the other side. Yeah, I just want to air my own view concerning election.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, election is on personality clash rather than the real issue of governance. We see our politicians taking a kind of a terrible measure to ensure that they get into post, because they know that when they are there, when they got there, at least they are already billionaires. And I have issue with our security agents. Where are you announcing your responsibilities? You want to go and arrest a thief, and you are now announcing from Abuja that I'm coming to Edo to come and arrest you. Will that thief stay there?
Okay, thank you, Kunle, for your contribution. Olabisi, in all, your experience about elections held in Nigeria.
Yeah, well, I've said it. It has always been characterized by violence, though not in all places, but, in some places. And, I was talking the other time about how sure the gladiators are sure of getting, justice at the end of the day, which Babajide also mentioned. I remember a son, speaking to us at the time, and he told us the experience of a governor, a candidate that lost in an election, in a governorship election. And after losing in that election, he hired that particular son that was sharing his experience to represent him in court. But at the end of the day, he lost. And from that time, the man made up his mind that if he were to participate in any election in Nigeria again, he will do everything possible to make sure that he wins in that election. Because they believe that it is cheaper for you to pursue your case after you have become, after you have won in an election, than doing it when you are not in power. So in other words, these gladiators, these politicians, will do everything possible to make sure that they get to power. And mind you, by the time they get to power too, they will be spending public funds in pursuing the legal battle.
All right.
And looking at
Thank you, BC. We have to leave it there. Finally, swords are drawn at the University of Lagos over the removal of the Vice Chancellor, Professor Oluwatoyin Ogundipe. The gladiators are not ready to shake their swords. After rejecting the removal of the VC and passing a vote of no confidence on the governing council, the Senate of the university has taken the fight to the presidency. A delegation of the body was at the Aso Rock Villa, Abuja, and called on President Muhammadu Buhari to intervene in the interest of the rule of law. Let's hear from Professor Agomo, the former Dean of Faculty of Law, University of Lagos.
We are here on behalf of Senate of the University of Lagos. We came to Lagos, we came to the villa because the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is a visitor to the university. So we thought we should come and pay a courtesy call to the villa, because we have gone to the appropriate authorities to bring resolution of Senate concerning the events that are unfolding in the university. The Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, we heard over the social media, was removed by the council holding a meeting in Abuja on the 12th of August 2020. So on the 13th of August, the University of Lagos Senate held an emergency meeting attended by about 91 professors. More than that registered, that's signified in the petition that they needed to have that emergency meeting. The issue is, what is the issue? We're here because we want to make it known that the alleged or the purported removal of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos has not followed due process, and therefore is illegal, cannot stand. We are not saying that the council has no right to remove the Vice Chancellor. No. We are saying due process has not been followed. There is a laid down procedure in the extant laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, namely the Universities Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 2003. It applies to all federal universities, and it provides for removal of a Vice Chancellor. If there is a need to remove a Vice Chancellor on the basis of misconduct, the procedure is that there should be a joint committee of Council and Senate. This has not been done in this case, and so we're saying it cannot stand. Rule of law has been trampled on the ground. And so we are really talking about the life and soul, if you like, of rule of law, of fairness, of justice, not just for University of Lagos, but for the entire university system. And if we are not careful, for the entire nation, because rule of law is the fundamental of our society, and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria provides for that. And so we are saying that this cannot stand. Due process must be followed. Please, let's note it. We are not saying a Vice Chancellor has or has not committed any offense. So banding allegations or whatever here or there is begging the issue. The issue is, if you say they have done something wrong, then follow due process. And if it's found guilty, so be it. But without due process, it cannot stand. And this council has trampled on due process, and therefore Senate said they have lost confidence in the council. First of all, they affirmed their confidence in the substantive Vice Chancellor, Professor Oluwatoyin, and the loss of confidence they have in the present Chancellor of the University of Lagos, led by Dr. Wale and Babalaki. You cannot, by any stretch of imagination, convoluted interpretation of the Constitution, say that you have fulfilled the requirements of the law when the provisions are so clear. And again, we also heard over the social media that an acting Vice Chancellor had been appointed. That flies in the face of justice. That's not what the law provides. It provides that if there's a vacancy and there's need to appoint an acting Vice Chancellor, that Council has a right to do so on the recommendation of Senate. This has not been done. So we're not dealing with the banana republic. So we can't wake up and just rewrite the rules and think that things will stand that way. So if we keep quiet, today is University of Lagos. Tomorrow will be another university. So it's not about University of Lagos alone. It's about what the federal government, what government prides itself in. That's rule of law, doing things the right way. And when things are not going the right way, being able to speak up and speak out and say, this is not the right way, it can't stand. So the Senate of the University of Lagos is saying, this purported decision cannot stand. Let due process be followed. Well, we went to NUC. The NUC Executive Secretary, it's not on city travel, but we did drop the letter, which was duly acknowledged. And we also went to the Minister of Education. We had a short interaction with the Minister of State for Education. He was so gracious because he was already on his way to the airport. But he accorded us that short time. So we had a brief discussion with him, and we dropped also the letter. So we have gone through the appropriate authorities, and because it's through the NUC, it comes to the visitor, and it comes to the visitor. And we also went to the villa to drop the letter. Yes.
Thank you. So now, what's the next line of action?
The next line of action. We'll report back to our constituency, to Senate. Senate sent us. The Senate of University of Lagos sent us. So we have delivered. We have run the errand. We are errand boys and girls, as it were. Okay. The status quo remains. That's what we're saying, that as we come, let status quo remain and let due process be followed.
Julie, now, last week we dealt with this issue, and we had development and the normal back and forth. My own problem with this administration. Now, I expected maybe before the end of last week, the Minister of Education or the National University Commission to have said, oh, what Wale Babalakin did were in support of the action of the council, and the VC go to court. Or the council, please step aside. We don't want crisis in UNILAG, and this is what we want to do, so that the federal government will talk. Now there's this back and forth between the University Senate and the council. Wale Babalaki held a press conference at MM2 last week, and this is the representative of UNILAG Senate speaking now. They've gone to the presidency, they've gone to the villa to ask for intervention. When would they get this intervention?
Nobody knows exactly when the intervention will come, but we have pleaded that they should not mess up that school. We want peace at UNILAG. UNILAG is the pride of our country, and this sort of thing should not be happening at the university. And the people who are even the gladiators in this matter, they know what the law says.
That lawyers,
the woman, that woman, the former dean of
Faculty of Law.
Faculty of Law. So
Professor
you cannot
of
say that she does not know what the law says. And Babalakin is a doctor of law.
A senior
You cannot say that he too does not know what the law says. Although we know that ego manages to get involved when we are talking about matters like this. And when ego gets involved, legality gets thrown out of the window. But that's not what we want to see. I was reading through the laws, the laws governing removal of VC and the rest of them. And even there, it is stipulated that the acting VC shall be appointed on the recommendation of the Senate. The acting VC that Babalakin has gone ahead to enthrone.
The Senate does not.
The law says that it is the Senate that will recommend. It didn't say, oh, as Governor Council Chairman, or as Vice Chancellor, you have unilateral power to pick. No. And it's just similar to
the process of removal of the Senate. Of the VC.
The Senate must get involved.
In the joint committee.
Joint committee will sit on it. They are saying that even at the meeting where it was announced, that it was not even meant to be on the agenda. That disciplining the VC was not even meant to be on the agenda. They both have to agree that the VC has to go. These things are deliberately done so that not one group cannot be overly powerful, too powerful to the point that
if they are choosing a new VC,
yes,
the Senate will come together. They will choose 3 nominees or 2 nominees.
Yes,
they will give it to Mr. President. Mr. President will now choose. As in, if they are choosing a new VC, that the Senate will be the one to be involved fully.
Yes, they will be the ones to nominate. Yes, they are their colleagues. They are the ones who work with them. You, a lawyer, for example, and businessman, there is no way you can know these people more than the people who work with them. That is the logic behind giving the Senate that kind of power. They are their colleagues. Because you can use your power to pick now and then eventually pick the wrong person. somebody who will not be able to run the place properly because you are far away. So when laws are made and checks and balances are created, people should respect it. Babalakin has every reason to be concerned if there is corruption in UNILAG. Well, nobody is saying no, don't fight corruption. But the point being made is that you must get everyone involved. Ayo, does it not bother you that all of the dominant groups within the university, ASU, NASU, SANU, NAT, all of them are against the removal. And the Senate, they are against the removal. 91 professors. They came together to have a meeting. You as an individual, you cannot be said to be superior to everyone. There are people who are even more educated and superior to you.
The University of Lagos alumnus led by Mr. John Momot, he came out with that. No, they're not part of this. Alumni, a very strong block.
So they came out with the alumni. I've heard where he appeared to be even castigating them as if the alumni association do not know what they are doing. But it is wrong. You are one person. And impunity, as I said last week, should not be the new normal in our country. If the procedure is there, follow it. That way, everyone will see that, yes, you fought a good battle. But if you sidestep the procedures, then people will think that you have ulterior motive.
Mojeed, what do you make of this crisis?
Yeah, to me, I see it as a case of two wrongs don't make a right. The Vice Chancellor, Dr. Wale Babalaki, I think he erred himself and the council by unanimously announcing the removal of the Vice Chancellor. Even as there are some cases of misappropriation of funds and fraudulent practices against the VC, but then the procedure, according to section 17 of the laws establishing the university system of a federal university, empowers the council to recommend the removal of a principal officer to the president, who is the visitor, through the minister for education. That has not happened. And also, section 3 of section 8 of this schedule also vests the power to remove on the president, who is also the visitor in the case of a federal university, or the state governor in the case of a state university. This has not happened. But like Professor, the former Dean of Law said, Professor Chioma, I mean, fantastic presentation. I mean, you can't fault her presentation. She said, we are not saying Ogundipe is right or wrong, but the process that led to his removal and to the appointment of an acting VC did not follow the rule of law. And why wait till the expiration of the tenures of the two deputy VCs before taking this action? Because ordinarily, either of the deputy vice chancellors at Yale or academics could have stepped in to act, even if we want to agree that the removal of the VC was lawfully done. But then there are allegations that the VC also renovated his own quarters for 49 million and also approved 41 million for the renovation of the quarters of the Bossa. I mean, that they have been doing all these kind of things. But then, like I said earlier, like I started, two wrongs does not make it right. There are procedures, there are processes for conducting investigations into such acts. You don't just wake up one day and turn yourself to a judge and to a lawyer.
Yeah, I think here is a case of two elephants fighting and the grass suffering, because both the council chairman and the vice chancellor, they obviously have an axe to grind among themselves. And the painful thing in all of this is that nobody is talking about the implication of this fight on the students. These are students that have been for over 4 months now, and they have been doing nothing. none of these people did anything to even, to help them, maybe to do any form of online study or anything like that. They've been home, idle. And I'm also happy that despite the fact that all the other, parties in the university have been involved in this, talking about it and blaming you, at least the students were able to come out yesterday as a body to say that none of these people is fighting for their interest. That both Babalaki and the Vice Chancellor, they are both fighting for their own selfish interest. And they also alluded to the fact that since the Vice Chancellor...
Our time is fast spent. Wrapping up on this, I know this is not the last of this.
No,
but as usual, we expect the federal government to wade into this crisis.
Yes,
and solve this crisis.
They should not waste any time. Apparently now, stakeholders in the university community, they are not happy with the pro-chancellor, and I don't know how he can continue to rule over them, given that all of these groups have made it clear that they do not approve of the action that he has taken. The Senate have passed a vote of no confidence on him because of this action, because they fear that it could be there tomorrow. You understand? So this is not something for the government to waste time about. Let's know where we are going on this matter, because today, neither Gundipe and Shoyombo,
the activists cannot even resume. Yes,
because it's not even sure that if he goes to office, it may not be attacked.
He was called today. They told me, he said Wednesday that
we sent people to he has not resumed. How do you
doesn't even have the locus
when you can see that your own people should back you?
Yes,
they are against your emergence. How would you be happy to resume? That means they must put a battalion of policemen to follow you to office. That's what it means in this kind of environment.
Send the wrong signal.
I mean, it's wrong. These things shouldn't be happening. It's very shameful.
Mojeed, Jamiu, MJ, thank you for your contribution. Olabisi, Deji-Folutile, thank you for your contribution today. And the maestro himself, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju, thank you for always being there. And that's our offering. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can watch Journalists Hangout on our platforms showing on the screen. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Uzubakun. See you tomorrow and urging you to stay safe.